Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Daily News with DJ Rick here on Tuned In Tennessee. And before we get started with the news, I'd like to remind you to please subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, and by all means tell all your friends how to get a hold of us and have them subscribe and like as well. So let's get to the news. We'll start off with the stimulus situation. Not a lot of negotiations going on at the moment with all the other craziness going on. However, the chairman of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Secretary both had to testify in front of the House today. The House Finance Committee, the House COVID-19 Committee on the pandemic situation. And Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, testified. And when he was asked about the situation, the effect of COVID-19 pandemic on the economy, he is quoted as saying that further stimulus is needed or permanent economic injury, including evictions and foreclosures and other events, can cause injury to the economy as well as permanent economic scarring. In other words, things we cannot come back from. Steve Mnuchin urged Congress in his testimony to work towards a further stimulus package. Congress asked him if he thought it was necessary. He did believe, along the same lines as the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, did, that it was necessary to prevent permanent damage to our economy. In other words, it's not just the people that are hurting right now. In other words, if you're one of the poor, the people that are unemployed due to the pandemic or underemployed, which is another thing most people don't speak of, you might be a gig worker who's barely getting by, in other words. Unemployment and PPP might not help you, but some form of stimulus, including checks, according to Steve Mnuchin, the actual stimulus check is what's needed to prevent permanent damage to the economy. Now, that's not just the people that are affected right now. And I know there's people out there, and hopefully you're one of the fortunate ones who right now the pandemic is not affecting you financially, or your food secure, your housing secure, things like that. So it's not affecting you now. However, Steve Mnuchin urged Congress to act because it will affect the entire economy if this amount of foreclosures goes through, this amount of evictions occur, this many people get behind on credit card debt, auto loan debt, things like that. That will tip the economy adversely for everyone. So it's not just, don't look at the short-term picture, is what he urged Congress. Speaking of Congress and Senate, we have an issue, obviously, with the Republicans Donald Trump is going to appoint a nominee for the Supreme Court open vacant spot from Ruth Bader Ginsburg's spot. Donald Trump said he will appoint someone. He's going to do that on Saturday. The Senate had, as of yesterday, had reported, Lindsey Graham had said not only will we do the hearings, but we will vote on this and we will install a justice previous to the election. This was yesterday. Today, Chuck Schumer, the House Minority Leader, has instituted the 2-hour rule. Now, if you're not familiar with the 2-hour rule, I'd really like to have one here. Any day you just get tired, you just institute the 2-hour rule. And what that says, that 2-hour rule, is that once the Senate is in session for 2 hours, they are done for the day. They're not allowed to hold any Senate committee hearings or anything of the sort. Marco Rubio was somewhat upset today. He had a Senate committee on national security was scheduled to meet this afternoon, but Chuck Schumer has invoked the 2-hour rule. So after 2 hours of Senate business this morning, the Senate had to close for the day. There are no exceptions, so Marco Rubio's the committee meeting on national security, which was today scheduled to meet and look into Russian interference in the election and other types of election security, was canceled for the day. A spokesperson for Mitch McConnell indicated today that Mr. McConnell, the Speaker of the House, majority leader of the Senate, has said that The 2-hour rule is not going to be a problem. It will not slow down the appointment of the Supreme Court justice spot. Now he's pretty much saying that, well, if they keep the 2-hour rule instituted, that President Trump can nominate whoever he'd like to nominate, and Mitch McConnell will just call it to the floor for a vote. In other words, they are planning on skipping all of the hearings. The Democrats will have no chance to question the nominee or anything like that. He's just going to take that nomination, put it on the floor for a vote. There you go. There's the vote. Here's your justice, kind of thing. DJ Rick has also, in some research, I read a report from One America Network, and their reporter, Stephen Kyle, indicated that Justice Clarence Thomas had said in an interview 5 years ago that he, as soon as Justice Ginsburg left the court, he would, in fact, retire. He's been looking to leave the court for about 6 years now. I did find the old footage from NBC reports. This was in 2015, and Judge Clarence Thomas said exactly that. A Fox News source indicated this morning, and doing some digging, I found this low importance report, if you will. Judge Clarence Thomas did say yesterday that he would still, and now even further, consider retirement because there's a Republican president and a Republican Senate, and he is assured that his conservative seat on the court would be filled in like manner. He also said, without giving away names, that there is another conservative justice considering retiring as well. Both of them look at it as if, well, their seat, being a conservative seat, is safe with Donald Trump and being in office, and the Senate being Republican. So we may end up with a Supreme Court that's not only 6-3 conservative versus liberal, but also the conservative side will be very young justices. So it could be a 6-3 court situation for many, many years to come. Republicans are very happy about this. Democrats are losing their minds over this. Chuck Schumer had said today that it was, I can't remember the exact words that he used, but he said, that's it. He said that Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Wagner, and President Trump, what they were trying to do is actually defiling the United States the United States Senate, and that it would destroy the Senate and its credibility from here on out. So take that however you'd like to take it. On other news, and this is the big news of the day, the Attorney General has announced that there will be no charges as they pertain to the death of Breonna Taylor. Out of the 3 officers involved in the incident, 2 of them, which are still on the police force, have been, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, they've been not charged. The shooting of Breonna Taylor was found to be justified. The only indictment in the case was on the officer that was fired, and he was indicted on charges of reckless endangerment. And that reckless endangerment is a charge stemming from him firing blindly into the building. And those 3 counts that he is charged with are for neighbors of Breonna Taylor's that were at home at the time. They were in their apartment, so his firing into the building without looking endangered their lives. Spokesman for the BLM, the Black Lives Matter organization, has said that it's ludicrous that he hasn't been charged at least with 6 counts of reckless endangerment, because there was a black family upstairs that was at home at the time. She also believes that he should have been charged with reckless endangerment for risking the life of Breonna Taylor, even though it was not one of his shots that did eventually kill her. It was one of the other officers. The city of Louisville yesterday afternoon had placed dump trucks around the downtown area in the streets strategically to block off downtown. You can't drive there. You will be able to go in and out of there through checkpoints, and I think there's only 2 of them, so there's 2 ways in and 2 ways out. Businesses downtown Louisville yesterday afternoon all boarded up. The Department of Homeland Security did identify the federal courthouse and the immigration building downtown as high value, what they would call high value targets. They did expect them to become targets of protesters. This was all yesterday. In anticipation is what the chief of police in Louisville said. We were anticipating, we don't know when the announcement's coming from the Attorney General, nor did he say that they knew what the announcement was. If you ask this reporter, why board up the windows? Of course, they knew what the announcement was going to be. However, the announcement was made earlier today. At the last point that I checked, there was between 3,000 and 4,000 protesters already surrounding the area in Louisville, as well as protesters in New York, Chicago, LA, Minneapolis, Portland, Seattle, and believe it or not, here at the studio, we are in a small town of Cleveland, Tennessee. Most of my listeners and viewers are here with us. And in our sleepy little town, during my 3 to 5 show, just an hour ago or so, we did have some protesters right out front of our studio window. These 4 protesters proceeded to block traffic it's a one-way street in front of the studio. They proceeded to block traffic, and when one young lady in her car tried to skirt around the blockade that they put up, one of the protesters threw a chunk of a cinder block, is exactly what it looked like, threw it at the windshield, broke the young lady's windshield, and another protester began to kick the side of her car. Upon that kicking in the side of her car, she took off and almost striking one of the protesters, but she did manage to get away. Another truck, a very large monster truck, pulled up. Protesters stopped it. The driver of the truck immediately just hopped out of the truck, held out his arms and said, what's up? And the size of this gentleman appears to have intimidated the 4 young protesters, and they scurried away into the whatever. They're just no longer here. So the young man got back in his truck and drove on his way. But I know they were Black Lives Matter protesters. They were wearing black t-shirts that on the back said Black Lives Matter. The front of their shirt had a hand gesture printed on the shirt, which I don't know what we call it around here, but in New York where I come from, we called it the bird, if you will. And up top of the shirt it said F the police, or the cops rather. So we understand their motivation. My urging to the young people that feel the need to protest is not protesting. Number one, don't protest in the road for your own safety. I have seen some really bad drivers out in front of the studio here, and I would not want to see anyone get run over. So please don't try to block traffic. The second thing is protesting is protesting. Throwing chunks of cinder block at passing cars is not protesting. It is rioting. It is reckless endangerment, if you will. I do understand they're being upset. I don't necessarily agree with them. The Breonna Taylor case was not, there's rumors out there that, and the mainstream media will tell you that, she was killed while police were executing a no-knock warrant. Well, to begin with, that is untrue. It was not a no-knock warrant. They did knock on the door for about 5 minutes. The neighbors witnessed that. They wondered what was going on. They did loudly identify themselves as police officers, and they were shot at from inside the building through the door, striking one of the police officers in the leg. So that was not a no-knock warrant situation. See, a lot of these things, the details don't come out, just the video does, or the word gets around. And then organizations like Black Lives Matter and some Antifa organizations and all kinds of, there's hundreds, literally hundreds of organizations now that are claiming that it's systemic racism. There really was no racism involved in the Breonna Taylor shooting. The Attorney General, the grand jury, didn't find any racism involved there. What is his name? I can't remember his name. He's a civil rights attorney representing Breonna Taylor, is back out on the street today making a statement. He seems to be he represented George Floyd's family. He represented Jacob Blake's family. Every time you see a television report about a questionable shooting by the police, this attorney's face seems to pop up. He's, I don't know whether he's an opportunist or really believes in what he's doing, but I'm pretty sure he's an opportunist. He did not do any services for free. He is making a small fortune off doing this. But he stood out there in Louisville this evening, or this afternoon, and encouraged civil unrest. I mean, he came right out and said, if we can't fix it, we'll have to burn it down. Other, respected media personalities, or should be responsible media personalities as well. You've got the CNN anchor, Michael Cuomo. I guess it was about 3 weeks, maybe a month ago, had said, and I saw this in speaking, he was doing a report with Don Lemon on CNN, and his statement was, well, show me where it says that protesting is supposed to be peaceful. Well, Mr. Cuomo, it's written in the Constitution. So you might want to read that document. That'll tell you where it's supposed to be peaceful. So my advice, protests are kicking off all around the country, and let's hope they stay peaceful. It's still daylight out now, but I don't expect that it'll be a shock to anyone when we see what we saw on CNN. Was in the picture behind the reporter was all the fires, and then he was saying, mostly peaceful protests. I expect that we'll head back to those nighttime, mostly peaceful protests this evening. So our advice to you, if you live in an urban area, I'd stay home, stay out of there. Stay away from downtowns and cities this evening. Things like that. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. You may want to check on your family members that are located in larger cities. This I would think would be a larger city type of a situation. However, right outside the studio window here this afternoon in sleepy little Cleveland, Tennessee, I got to see firsthand what it looks like for rioters to be in the streets. So, like I said again, protesting is protesting. And I understand that it's your First Amendment right. However, rioting is a crime. And I know around here in Cleveland, if they catch you rioting, you will be arrested, taken to jail, and prosecuted. Here in Tennessee, they just don't play with that. So let's hope that all the protesters do take it seriously, and if you're going to go out and protest, my hat's off to you. If you want to get involved in this melee, just try to be safe. Follow the direction of police officers. Try not to get yourself in any violent situations or anything you could be arrested for. So, and good luck with that. But thanks again for watching the Tuned In News today, the Daily News with DJ Rick. We appreciate it. And again, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and tell all your friends. And just this evening, be safe out there, and we'll be back tomorrow to keep you tuned in.